Usually that's good because then you like get people who wouldn't have been able to get it at the previous time.
Yeah. So, hi, welcome to Philosophising.
Hello.
My name is Ruby,
And I'm Nathan.
and we philosophize about science usually sometime in the evenings during the week,
Yeah.
during the work
Yeah.
week
Usually,
sometimes.
well, so usually on Fridays, but our schedules have been a bit crazy this week, so we moved it to Thursday. So hello, Thursday people. I hope they're an interesting bunch.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, we used to do Thursdays during
Oh
COVID
yeah,
era.
yeah, yeah.
This is actually like an original time, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Like Thursday people are nice. They're lit. They're
Yeah.
legit. Uh
um. Anyway,
anyway, yeah, so what are we talking about today?
so this week, I kind of wanted to talk about the origins of myths or like science myths that kind of get perpetuated almost into like pop culture to the point where even non-scientists would be like they would say that and you'll be like what, and it's like something you quickly learn is untrue maybe even in undergrad, but for some reason it just stays in the vernacular. And like even my parents would say this to me and I was like, you do realize what I do for a living? Um
And
and
you're
it's
just
just like,
like, so that is not true.
yeah, and it's like the magic of I guess I don't know if it's magic, but like a little bit of data being misinterpreted or incompletely like digested, and then like a journalist who took some liberties, and then it just runs away, and then it just becomes this thing that people like believe forever. And I think since we're both neuroscientists, I feel like we can I know the origins of this now, but like this 10% of the brain is being used at one time. People say this,
That
like
sounds good.
even
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you hear it all the time. And I was just
yeah.
like, what do you mean 10% is brain? And like obvious like for me it's obviously not true, but where did that myth come from? Like
Hmm.
why? Like, and it actually came from like the 20s, like the 1920s when they were doing recording, like think like
And I
Penfield.
guess I would add like what does that mean? Like does it mean like you only need 10% of your brain to survive? Like does it mean that only 10% is active at any time? Like what I guess whenever I hear that, I'm just like, huh, those are words.
Yeah, well, so okay, so I think one of the reasons it's so popular in the regular world is because it sounds like it's motivating. It's like if you only ever use
Yeah.
10% of their brain, you know, what would it be like if you use more of it? Like, and you have the potential to be like this amazing smart person. Like it sounds really good, and that's one of the
Okay. Yeah.
reasons it like gets perpetuated.
Mhm.
And like another one is just uh what's it called when someone's like oh like they want like a nice mathematical like a round number so that they can be like, ah,
Right.
I'm
Like
using like 2% of my brain, so 2% of my 10 is being used. Like
they
10
want
is
it
just
to
a nice,
sound sciency.
yeah, they
Yeah.
want it to sound sciencey. Also, like 10 is like easy number to remember. Like it just kind of sticks in the zeitgeist, and it just becomes like a,
Yeah.
yeah, like I heard this, I think, term being used and dropped around even before I became a neuroscientist. Like it was like, ah, you only need
Hmm.
10%.
Yeah.
You know, and I
I
was
think I
always
learned
in,
it in like elementary school or something.
yeah, or like even adults would say it, right? Like adults would say it to
Hmm.
you, kids would say it to you. It just like was in the vernacular of
Yeah.
American
I think there's a
school.
movie about like what happens if you gain the ability to like use more than 10% of your brain, which is apparently you get like psychic powers
Oh
and can like
yeah.
travel through time and stuff.
Oh, I forgot that.
Lucy.
Yeah, and he had to like he took a
Yeah.
pill, right? Like he took a pill
She
and then
takes the
he,
pill. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
no, it's like, no, no. So Limitless is the one where just like he gets really good at trading stocks. Um, but that one doesn't, like that one I don't think actually involves the 10% of your brain myth. I think like Lucy is about this woman who's involuntarily a drug mule and like the drug packet explodes in front of inside of her and it like gives her the ability to like use all of her brain, which gives her like psychic powers and like mind like future seeing powers and like all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the other place that it gets perpetuated a lot is in media where they show brain scans. So whenever they
Mhm.
show a brain scan and then they have like a coronal section, and then they like show a spot that's like bright red, and they're like, oh look, that's their blank part of their brain. And then so you just kind of like, the assumption is all the other parts are not also alive and being used. It's just the part
Right,
that's
like
like
there's always like
red.
one blob that's lit up, and then
Yeah, there's
it's
the
like
lit up
that's the
blob.
part that's active in this task.
Yeah, and then they're that part is blob is lit up. They must be experiencing fear or whatever. And every time, like, it's like comically bad, like that. There's these functional fMRI images, and there's just like a one bright spot. I wish we had Nadira here to like dispel like how much work it takes to like mathematically find differences between brains and how it's represented, and what those spots mean. Like, you can't really get it the way the media shows. Like, that's not a thing. And that probably adds to the 10% thing, right? Because like the whole brain's like this big, and then the spot looks like 10% of the whole brain. So yeah, like, oh, they're doing this cognitive task, there's like one bright spot that's 10% of being the brain being used. um yeah, that probably doesn't help.
Mhm.
And just
So
like
what was
limited.
the origin of this?
Yeah, okay, so the beauty of this origin is that it actually came from science papers. So the original experiments, if you think of like Penfield era, when they had
Mhm.
human patients that were awake, not fully anesthetized, they're just like, locally anesthetized, and you can like open up the brain and you can like zap the cortex. And basically they were zapping all over the cortex and like labeling, like, like anatomically all of these different areas, and they would ask the human, do they feel anything, or if they're and when they hit the motor areas of the cortex, their body parts would literally move, right? Like, if you hit the motor cortex part that represents this finger, the finger would start moving when you zapped it, right? It'll just be like zap, zap, zap. And
Mhm.
so they would do this all over the brain, like to like test, like usually they were doing this to like remove a tumor or something. So meanwhile, they had to
Mhm.
map out all the other parts of the brain, and they
Like what
noticed
are
that,
the yeah.
yeah, so about 10% of the brain would move body parts when you zapped it, because
Huh.
that's about how much motor cortex is. It's like a strip that's like the size of this band on my, it's not a huge amount
Yeah.
of the cortex.
So
So
right,
about,
so they would say like, okay, so the motor cortex is about 10% of the brain.
correct. And it would cause movement of your body, all your body parts. And then they're like, so that was reported, which is
Mhm.
fair, and that's fine. And it was like, what a really cool experiment. And then like, multiple people did it, a lot of people different did, like, surgeons, this is like surgeons like giving accounts. So everyone agreed that there's about 10% of the brain where you zapped it, you got movement. Which corresponds to the motor cortex. And so for us, I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Data sounds very sound. If you give this data to a not neuroscientist, they will just be like, 10% of the brain is responsible for all movement
And
and
it
all motions
therefore
in the
is
brain.
just responsible just for everything, right?
Yeah, and then you just like,
Yeah.
play telephone a couple times, and then you end up with this myth where like 10%
It
of the
was
brain
so
is being used at a time.
was that Penfield's like assumption actually is like, okay, these parts of the brain that don't cause any, like, was he like they aren't doing anything, or was that something that was assumed
I don't
after
think
the
he
fact?
actually made that claim. No, it was literally like, he'll give percentages about like, oh, like this, about this much distance from here to here. Like, they're very precise
Yeah.
measurements, and sometimes it
I
just
feel like it would be
runs away.
hard to make that claim if you were a neurosurgeon because you're like, this part of the brain doesn't do anything. And then you're just like, hey, did this person used to be able to talk? Uh,
No, so what they
like,
so
nah, probably not.
yeah, so the way he did it, he's like equally spaced the electrode
Yeah.
placements. And so like it was
Okay.
like basically like a grid. Like, if you went across, every like the cortex that you're testing, and then you just made a grid, and then you like literally systematically went grid wise, then like there would be approximately that much
Mhm.
area.
Yep.
So I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of where it started. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, MISC, I mean, it can run away from us, right? Like, it is clearly now in the zeitgeist of not neuroscientists that are
It
describing
kind of
10% of the
reminds
brain.
me of like what we were talking about in the like in the science communication part, where like it seems like people kind of repeat it mostly maybe because it's, I mean, in part because it's kind of a nice statement about human potential. It's not literally like necessarily that people don't know like what the like it's not literally that people think that like the parietal cortex doesn't do anything. It's like that kind of it's more related to their values and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the values for the people drive a lot of these myths, right?
Hmm.
Another one I prepared for today was like blood types, zodiacs, and like
Hmm.
astrology, which is another like, and that being linked to your personality. Like, I don't even know if that's called a myth anymore at this point. Like, some people just like believe it full on.
They'll just believe it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
they're
like
like,
a belief. Yeah.
I have this blood type. I am a Aquarius, and
I
I
think the
am
blood
a
type one, I think the blood type one is super interesting because I found out about this when I started following like K-pop. And like for some reason for all the K-pop members, it would like list it would have like their height and their weight and like their interests and like their vocal range and then their blood type. And I was like, wait, why is this on this page? And then I realized that like in Korea, this is considered like a really important aspect of personality, and then I feel like it's kind of spread out of East Asia to other places now.
Yeah, no, so I think the reason behind it is because actually the original paper that described blood type connected with personality is from Japan. It's in Southeast Asia.
Uh-huh.
And so I mean it was very descriptive. We can drop the paper.
Mhm.
Actually, I should be dropping these papers anyway, but this it's a Furukawa paper. Hold on, let me send it to you so that you could put it on Slack.
Put it in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the for
Um,
Aka paper, and so it was like a description of a study of temperament and blood groups, in 1929, and I mean it's largely, not super like there's not a lot of science behind it. It's just very
like it
descriptive.
doesn't seem to really like correspond to anything biological, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, but like, people really enjoy the idea of having some link between biology and function, which is what we do like for a living. So for us it's like, oh, simply, that makes no sense.
Hmm.
But like, in the society that they're in, it's probably useful to have a framework for understanding differences in a society where it's mostly homogenous, like everyone kind of looks the same, and you need like an in group, like, we're the
Hmm.
A's, we're the B's, we're the ABs, and we're like the O's.
Yeah. I'm
But
actually okay. I was reading the Wikipedia article on this, and it seems like the history of this is like way more racist than I assumed it was. Like,
yeah, and actually,
uh,
they're starting to be like more modernizing would be like taking it off your resume so that people couldn't discriminate against you for being like,
against you based on your blood type.
yeah,
Yeah.
one of your blood types. Okay, so but like this, like one of the explanations for why this became so viral and everywhere around is probably because of this effect called the Barnum effect, which is a
Hmm.
psychological phenomenon where individuals accept kind of vague general personality descriptions as uniquely applicable to themselves. So like, and it's like it could be self-fulfilling prophecy, and like people who believe the theory might unconsciously conform to that theory, and then that when you expect some, it's like really extra strong placebo.
Hmm.
um
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, when you read an astrology thing and it's like, today you're going to have an excellent day because the stars are aligned in some weird way, and then you go and
Yeah,
you're like,
or when
today
you
you're
read
going to have
like
a great day.
astrological just descriptions
Yeah.
of like what you are like it's like people who are like Aquariuses are like curious and unconventional, and I'm just like, yeah, that seems weirdly accurate, but it turns out just like that's because most people describe themselves that
As
way.
various and yeah. um Yeah. So, if you add that to, I'm going to have an amazing day. That's your astrology read for today. Then you go and have an amazing day because you're like, you started off your day with reading, like, you're going to be awesome today. And then you had an awesome day. Then, like, next time you're like, yeah, I believe that. Like, let me read, what it says next day. And then it's like, oh, you're going to have a, accident prone day. And then maybe you like, get a paper cut and like you attribute all the little things that happened to you that day. And then like it just keeps, snowballing. Um, maybe that's
Yeah.
an explanation for why. Yeah, or like handwriting, your handwriting reveals your personality. So that one's actually quite nice because this myth is quite nice because the flip side of it is your handwriting reveals your health, your mental health, and that is actually true. We do that for people who are going through different kinds of dementia or Parkinson's. You
Hmm.
can really tell as the disease progresses, the handwriting gets changes.
Hmm.
Artists will
Yeah.
paint differently, or like their perception of color changes. So like your
Yeah.
art, your like descriptions of things can change because
And
it's
I think like motor function in general, like there's a prototype that's in the MIT museum, right? Or at least it was, where it was like it has you just type a sentence and then it uses that to like estimate your chances that you have Parkinson's disease.
yeah, and it's fairly accurate too, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
scary. Um, but like I don't know if it, attributes to your personality. Like maybe you had the disease and that's why your personality changes. Like there's a lot of
Right.
diseases where, you
Oh,
can be depressed because you got the disease and then you're sad and then now
right.
their
Were you talking
correlation.
about the link between like handwriting and the disease, or handwriting and mental health, or
Handwriting and personality was
and
the
personality?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like people try
Yeah.
to like attribute this, and even when you're like a kid, they're like, "Oh, you have such girly handwriting," or like, "Oh, you have such messy, sloppy." Like people were like, "Oh, if you're a sloppy writer, you must be a sloppy person." Like like they'll attribute things to you. Um,
Yeah. I
myth.
think it's Yeah, I mean, there's the handwriting thing is super interesting too because um, it shows up with like analysis of politicians. Like you'll like there'll be things where they like find notes that they wrote, and then they'll be like, "What can we say about this person's mental state?" I do think it's interesting because it's like we do know like when you do large scale correlations on this, like there are some things that pop out as real correlations, but they're not like the ones that people talk about. It's not it's not like, oh, we can tell that this person is a psychopath because we looked at their writing and like their G's are too close together. It's like we we put this person, we took an image of this person and we found out that they're more like 20% more likely to have this like subtype of this dopamine receptor. Um,
Yeah, or you have early onset Parkinson's
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
A
Like,
lot of it
it's
is
something.
honestly, yeah, a lot of it is just like you took a picture of their writing and then it's like, oh, this person has like dyspraxia or like damage to their cerebellum or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so I was looking at this blood type personality Wikipedia on article. And I mean, talking about like values and stuff, I thought this was interesting talking about the history of it. So Furukawa, who is I guess the guy who first came up with this, some historians described it as starting when Japan was occupying the island of Taiwan, which was not the country of Taiwan at the time. It was just like it had a different group of people living on it. Um, and and his goal is to penetrate the essence of the racial traits of the Taiwanese, who recently revolted and behaved so cruelly. Based on the finding that 41.2% of Taiwanese samples had type O blood, Furukawa assumed that Taiwanese rebelliousness was genetic. His reasoning was supported by the fact that the Ainu, whose temperament was characterized as submissive, only 23.8 is type O. In conclusion, Furukawa suggested that Japanese should increase intermarriage with the Taiwanese to reduce the number of Taiwanese with type O blood. So basically, just like this is just some straight up like weird
Colonizing.
race science for colonizing. Like it's like the people who like measured the sizes of skulls of different ethnicities and was like, this is why white people are the smartest, except with blood types and
Ooh.
Japanese people.
Yeah, it's very, is it imperial empire? Like it has empire or eugenicsy tones to it.
Yeah. And then they're like, okay, and that's why we should like wipe out this group of people.
Oof. Oof.
Yeah.
I
Remind
mean,
me is like those punk ass type. Oh,
I was gonna say, there is a genetic component to it, right? Like the science behind
Yeah.
it is that, there are certain blood types you would not probabilistically could not have if your parents
Hmm.
are a certain combination of blood types, which makes sense because these are literally just proteins that grow on the outside of your hemoglobin. And
Yeah.
like you don't even need it. Like type O's don't even have, like, their O means they don't have these proteins. Um
Yeah.
like I'm not sure if it's like super important for like our existence, but it is important when we talk about medicine and sharing blood because transfusions
Like
save a
blood
lot of lives.
transfusion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some transfusions and like organ donations. In these cases, it is very important to know the blood type, and it became really common to include it in your IDs and like health medical records so that in the case that you were unconscious and you needed a transfusion, they did not only need to give you O type negative, right? They could give you
Right.
other blood, like, and
And they
then it's
don't
like
need to waste time figuring out your blood type.
correct. They could
Uh,
just give you the thing that you require. And so,
yeah.
that's useful. And so I guess it was like easily accessed because they just told you what it was and it was like on your papers. And it just was an easy thing to distinguish each other from
But
and
then
like
people are like, oh yeah, type A people are like this. Yeah.
yeah, and type people
Um,
to B people are like this, and then like, oh, like this child is a blood type that is not ours. Like, how can they be a blank if
yeah.
the
I
parents
mean
are
that
blank and blank?
the other part of that is like there are differences in like the prevalence of different blood types by ethnicity, like the racist Japanese guy said. But like it seems like those are probably mostly founder effects. So it's probably like you have like a pretty small population of like people who show up on some island and like their blood types are not going to be like uniformly distributed. Like statistically speaking, there's going to be some sort of bias. And then they populate the island and then this island is like disproportionately type O or whatever. And
I
then
was
at the
gonna say
same
they
time, they tend,
intermarry with each other.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then at the same time, they tend to develop like a unique culture just as a group of people. And then then you get this kind of spurious association between these things, which is also like, I mean, like you said, it's like blood type is so easily measured. It's like it's super cheap to do. Like you don't need to do any like it's probably like the most simplest and most common like molecular genetic test we do.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
I mean, like the discovery of it was really important for transfusions and
Hmm.
saving lives, right?
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
did a lot, right, to understand, like, hey, these bloods are not compatible, and you'll have like an immune response and rejection of organs, and
Right.
all that. It is very
Which is
important
like
for
why all of us, like even in cultures that don't really believe in this, like pretty much all of us know our blood type.
just in case, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um.
Um,
Oh, I was
I
gonna
wanted to mention.
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say like
Yeah.
you
Can.
can look up the blood types of like all the Americans in America and you can look at the breakdown. I can read it
Oh,
out real
really?
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So O
Yeah.
positive, average distributions of blood types in the US as of 2023. O type positive is 38%, A positive is 34%. B positive is 9%, O negative 7%, A negative 6%, AB positive 3%, B negative 2%, and then at the lowest is AB negative is 1%.
So we're a rebellious people, is what I'm hearing. Like almost as rebellious as the Taiwanese.
Yeah, we are. We have
Uh-huh.
very little AB negative, right? That's
Uh-huh.
the AB negative was
The
the
docile one.
docile.
Yeah. And it's like almost as much O positive as the Taiwanese population.
That is wild. I don't have the breakdown for
This is
Taiwanese.
yeah. I mean, but I mean it was before like this was before the ROC moved their stuff there, so it was probably like a different population, right?
Ah, yeah, then that's fair. Wait, hold on. I think I can
Um,
share my screen window.
oh yeah, if you try and do it, and then I'll put you on the
Yeah, can
screen
you see that?
for the scene. Um, yeah,
Okay,
distribution of
so
blood
this
type.
is a distribution of blood types in the US by ethnicity. Um clearly it's like not that different, but it's also not different,
There's like
right?
some differences. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
basically no A negatives that are Asian.
Uh-huh. Huh.
There's also a lot more O positives in African Americans and Latino Americans than in Caucasian and Asians. There's way more B positives in Asians than um Caucasians. Yeah, it's distributed
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit. Yeah. Founder effects.
Yeah, and there's like no very few O negative Asians. Wait, does that make me a rare Asian?
You're O negative.
I'm O negative, yeah. Um,
Interesting.
the
Yeah.
only
I
reason
wonder
I
if that
remember
means.
it is because I was taught that that was a universal donor, and during crises
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
should go donate.
It was one of the fancy ones.
Yeah, I have a fancy blood
Um,
type that was like go donate when there's a disaster, and I was like, cool, put me on the
yeah.
list. Anyway, uh,
Yeah. I was
you know,
so speaking also of like socially like myths that exist for like sociological reasons. I was really curious. I guess I feel like I spend more time on TikTok than you do, but do you get like bombarded with really weird like gender essentialist stuff on social media all the time?
what is an example of a gender sense? What gender? What?
I think like I think it's like it's a lot of it's a lot of like dating and relationship content, and a lot of it is like men are biologically this way and women are biologically this way, and therefore you should do this.
I think one of
Um,
your dating apps have definitely sold your data because I get
yeah,
no dating
because
anything on my social
you
media.
don't get this. Yeah, I mean
No, not at all.
I think I also get it because it makes me really mad. So then I like argue with the
Oh,
people
and
who
you like
are making it.
I
But it's
do
like
get
it's really. Oh, go
oh, I
ahead.
was gonna say I get like medical things all the time for like old people. Like I feel like I get old people medication a lot. Like medication
Oh
that's like
yeah, I
ask your
get some of those
doctor
too.
if you need this.
Yeah.
And I was
The
like, if
other weird thing is like TikTok can't really seem to figure out what my gender and sex is. So it's like it'll get like, do you need more testosterone? And then I'll get like, are you experiencing symptoms of perimenopause? And I'm just like,
that's fair. Actually, I do get a
I'm
lot of hair
hair
adverts.
like hair growth ads.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hair growth adverts are like, like put, rub this iodine looking thing on your hair and like suddenly you'll grow new follicles.
Yeah. I doubt don't put iodine on your head, incidentally. But I guess like beyond the ads, I think this is really interesting because like a lot of the people who make this content, they kind of come at it with this sort of like semi-science based it's like bad evolutionary psychology essentially. And they I think like one of the ones you'll see a lot is like, okay, women are or men are biologically predisposed to cheat, and then women are biologically predisposed to be loyal, and therefore like all men always cheat and you should just like expect this. And I mean like there's so many of these that are just like statistically wrong. Like if you look at like the rates of cheating by gender, they're like almost exactly the same. So like
I was gonna
but
say, cheating requires two people. Like you're gonna
yeah.
go cheat with someone,
With
ideally the partner of the sex that you are also into, which means then that's the equal number of the opposite. Unless there's
I
like
mean,
a
but you could be cheating on your partner with someone who's currently single, I think is the
no, but the single person
idea.
is now a cheater without having a
Right.
partner.
I guess like do you consider that person like a cheater? Or yeah, it is, but I think kind of regardless of all these like specifics, I think the overarching thing is like, and like I kind of get the idea that people are like, oh yeah, like you can kind of figure out these biological laws that just kind of happen to match our like 1950s assumptions about gender. That and they're like universal laws, and like all these animals in the animal kingdom do this. And I think just like generally, I think the really interesting thing about that is that if that were true, the world would not look like the way it is. So like if humans really optimize, like so much of it is based on these ideas about like parental investment, and like people want to optimize the number of children they have, and like it's evolutionarily optimal for men to have children with lots of women, and like for women to have just like one partner, and that influences what we find attractive. And like that's not necessarily wrong, but when you look at how people actually behave, it's very clear that is not the main thing that influences how we behave. Because if it was, we wouldn't have all these countries that are like, if we were optimizing partners to like have the maximum number of children, we wouldn't be below replacement rates in most developed countries. And we wouldn't have this huge portion of people who just decides they don't want any children at all. And like what that tells us, I think, is that kind of this kind of Darwinian calculation. I mean, it definitely explains certain aspects of our biology. It explains like why we like sugar and sex, like in general. But I think like you have to be like really careful about like just applying this to explain stuff, because in lots of times you try and make like, okay, what would be the mathematically obvious calculation here? And what you predict is not at all what people actually do. And I think what's interesting here is like it seems like what we evolved to do, like when you talk about animal behavior, is that we evolved actually to be very, very flexible and be very long-term planners. I think the like there's a lot of species where they have like one or two reproductive strategies that like all the individuals in the species use, and humans seem to have kind of lost that. Like it seems like the defining evolutionary characteristics of species of humans is just we figure it out in kind of a culture and individual specific way, and we have a lot of individual preferences, and basically just don't read too much into these random people who seem like they're talking about evolutionary theory if like they're predicting that people will do things that they don't actually. Like if the implication is that like everyone would be trying to have children all the time, clearly this theory is not very good.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really lovely way to describe
Yeah.
the human condition. I feel like a lot of times this is actually a problem in implementing evidence-based medicine too. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah. So for example, like if you surveyed, the entire American population and like the number of women that get breast cancer and how prevalent it is, then you can like determine if you want to catch, let's say 80% of them, 80% of people with breast cancer, by the age of blank, so that we can treat them early. Then you need to screen this many people, right? Which means, and usually it's a really big number. And then the insurance companies are going to be like, that's a crazy number. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But then
this is not cost effective.
Yeah, then they're like, okay, well, let's just get like the really hard cases, like the cases that are like, stage blank, really high levels of some disease. But actually, then you're like, okay, so do I screen or do I not screen? So applying it on the other hand, like as a person, as a woman, that's like, do I go get the screen or do I not get the screen? It's really hard to be like, like, in the population, it's like 30% of the people, if you test 30% of them, you'll get 1% will get positive. I'm completely making up these numbers.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, then the likelihood is like 1 in 10,000 people will have this disease. So then I just don't need to go test. Or we should all go test because we might be. Do you know what I mean? Like it's really hard to implement like the statistics where it's like based off of like a large group of people and apply it to what is the probability, like should I go and get tested? And
Right.
like would it be useful if they tested me? It's really hard, right? Like in hindsight, and like so that's just like testing. That's not even like diseases. Not like we don't even know how. Like we do a lot of these like clinical trials and things for efficacy, and a lot of times they'll be like, this works about half of the time, and for some diseases that's great because most of the times you get it doesn't work at all. But half of the time means for half of the people it doesn't work.
Right.
Like you can interpret it, like should I spend the money and do this, or should I use it for something else? It's hard to implement it when it's like your own one person. This is a completely different topic than today's myth thing. We should go back to the myth.
Yeah, Broge put this link to, it looks like an XKCD comic. XKCD 795.
Ooh,
What is this?
it's a
Conditional
comic,
risk.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is relevant. So it's oh, this is funny.
We should get inside. It's okay. Lightning only
Here,
kills
I'll
about
show it.
45 Americans a year, so the chances of dying are only 1 in 7 million. Let's go on. Um,
And then the annual death rate among people who know that statistic is 1 in 6. Yeah, so this is basically like this. I guess this is the
that's
other part of what
basically
you
what
were
I said, yeah.
talking about. Yeah,
But better and in one comic. See,
it's like,
sometimes a visual does better than words. That is an excellent comic. Thank you, Spraj.
that's great.
That was pretty excellent, I have to say. That was really good. Um, okay, I have one last myth, which I guess it's like
Okay.
the darkest one. This
Okay.
myth
Uh-huh.
is, I think it hurts a lot of people, and here is an example of where it really hurt a lot of people. So, there is a category in food that we call foodish medicine herb supplements that is called generally
Mhm,
recognized as safe. You'll hear the
mhm,
word grass a lot, like
mhm,
GRAS.
mhm.
And people just assume it's grass, it's safe, you can eat it in any combination with anything you
Yeah.
want, and it'll
I
be
mean, I guess
fine.
that's kind of what the term implies, right?
I
Like,
know, it's so it actually
yeah.
doesn't the it's actually the catch-all term for things that they did not study large enough, but it seems fine, and it's the Wild West gray zone. It actually doesn't mean anything if it says grass.
So when they say generally recognized, it's just like some people looked at it or like, yeah, seems okay.
Yeah, there hasn't been huge studies, large enough studies to do it.
Mhm.
And usually what happens is that something horrible will happen, then the FDA will do an investigation and then they're like, this is no longer grass. And now there's a black box label, like only take it if you have this, and you're not taking this medication and blah blah blah. So this happens a lot. Like things in teas, like teas that could genuinely change and alter your brain and your body, a lot of them are generally recognized as safe. Like, and on the other hand, if you go to a doctor and be like, "Hey, can I be drinking this tea and taking your medication at the same time?" Most doctors will just tell you no, like,
We'll
don't do
just be
any of that.
like, just
Yeah,
like
but
with any, like with herbal tea in general, like the recommendation will be like, just don't drink it
yeah,
while you're on this. Yeah.
while on this, because they might use the same pathway to metabolize it, they might have counter into, and the thing, the real reason is that there isn't enough studies to combo it. And like,
Yeah.
how would you study? You would need a cohort that would drink the tea and not drink the tea, and then also take this drug and also have the same disease. Like, it's just a really hard way to like combo the test. And so generally they're like, we have like gone through the trouble of figuring out, taking this drug in this context when you're sick. Like, we're not going to add, like, if you're also drinking these 12 different teas. And so it's nothing. So
Right.
a huge lawsuit fairly recently, multiple lawsuits actually, came down after this tara flower, um, which contains this chemical called bicoline, which
Uh-huh.
causes severe liver injury, and like some people lost their gallbladders. I'm not sure if anyone died, but it was really bad, and it got really big on social media first as there's a lot of social media people who were doing health foods and like lifestyle lifestyle social media. We're like, let's eat this thing together, and you can buy it for something 99 if you use this promo code. So anyway, it got really popular, got a lot of people eating it, and then people got really acute liver toxicity
And then it turned
and
out it's like severely toxic. Yeah.
severely toxic. Like within like 6 hours they were in hospital in like severe pain, lots of things wrong. And they'll come in like, daily harvest French lentil and leek crumbles, or like really fancy, like, health food.
Like
health
Innocuous
conscious.
seeming. Yeah.
Yeah, organic. It was like organic lentils and crumbles or something, and it had this taro flour in it. And I mean, since then the FDA has done an investigation. But before then, like when it was like kind of a small thing when it first started coming out, it had such a huge media push. Like they did a really good PR campaign to like sell the taro flour laced food, and then it went real south real fast. And so now most of the companies have recalled all of the products, and there was multiple lawsuits, and people got their money back. Oh, I mean, I don't know if you want to be hospitalized for this money, but if you were, you can join some
Yeah.
lawsuits and
You
get
can
some
sue
money
them.
back.
Yeah.
You can sue them. But like this is the problem, right? Like it's very dangerous to be like, it has a grass. It was grass. Like what? Why? It
Right.
was generally recognized as safe.
So that like things that are generally recognized as safe are not necessarily safe.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't even know if that's a myth. That's just like a PSA to be like,
I feel like it's kind of a myth. Like the myth is that like the thing that is categorized is safe is actually safe.
yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, those are
It's
my
like
science myths.
yeah.
Kind of
I
depressing end.
yeah. I mean I think that one is like it's I mean it kind of relates to some of the toxicology stuff that we were talking about
I've been on the
last time.
toxicology kick
Yeah.
like recently. Unfortunately, I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's talk about fun space stuff for the second
Oh
half.
yeah, sure. So I have some space facts slash space myths. So like we said in the title, it's been a really good week for aliens. Um, so okay, I think I'll start with like the things that are most likely. Like I think I'll go in like descending order of like how likely it actually is to be aliens. Um, so first of all, so
Wait,
NASA
descending.
actually
So this is the most
like
likely
so
to
we're
be aliens.
starting with the thing that is most likely to
Okay.
be aliens, and
Okay.
then decreasing in probability.
I'm so excited.
Um,
Okay, let's go.
yeah, last week NASA announced that they're pretty sure they had found evidence of past microbial life on Mars, which is obviously is a huge deal. Um, and specifically, this came from the Perseverance rover. If you actually look at what they found, it's quite it's a little bit counterintuitive. So when I first looked at this, essentially the story was that the rover actually about a year ago found what they called this leopard spotted rock, which is just a rock that had spots in it. And the people who do Martian geology were like, this is a really unusual rock for this region. So they took like a closer look at it. And what they found is that the spots basically contained these dots in them that contained signatures of a couple of chemicals. Let me pull it up. So I guess what I was assuming when I first like saw this headline is that they found evidence of like fossilized microbes, and that's actually not what they found. Um, Here, I will show the screen, share the screen too.
So a
Um,
spotted rock.
yeah, so this is the spotted rock. So olivine is just like a normal rock. But this stripy part and that they found, so they said that it was a sedimentary rock that had these weird, unusual spots in it. So that was what prompted them to take a deeper look at it.
Is it because
The
it has like this
Martian,
ring around it? Like,
uh-huh, exactly, yeah.
okay.
Yep. And I guess this is unusual in the area that they were in was these leopard spot features. So the scientists who were looking at this image were were just like, huh, what is going on here? Um, and so the Perseverance rover actually has a couple of spectrometers that you can basically use to do imaging with them. So you can take an image like that and it will tell you about the chemical composition of like each pixel in the image. So they did that and they found that these leopard spots contained organic carbon with phosphate, iron, and sulfur. And eventually they decided that the best explanation for why that these are there is that there's these two chemicals, vivianite and briegite. And the really interesting thing about these is that these are chemicals that are usually created through the metabolism of living things. Um, so
Oh.
they say that basically they said that they participate in what are called redox reactions. So basically reactions involving oxygen to get energy. And they were found at these very specific, like just very specific points within the rock, which the scientists called reaction fronts. And so it's like it's not like these are kind of diffusely present through the rock. They're present just kind of in these little points, which would be like where colonies of bacteria would potentially be. And so based on that, they published this paper and had this announcement where they were saying like we're pretty sure that these were created by some living thing.
Oh, okay. So they didn't actually find
So they
cells.
didn't find, yeah, they did not find actual cells. I
Yeah.
think, I
But
think
water.
the
So like water and like the residue of living thing material.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
I think this one is really just the residue from the living things. I think the the rover does not have kind of the instruments that would be able to see actual like fossilized microbes. I think it doesn't have the resolution and also it doesn't have the ability to like stain the rocks for living things the way we'd usually visualize bacteria.
Got it.
Um,
I mean,
but
that's still pretty cool. Like the
yeah,
fact
yeah.
that, a microbe and water existed on Mars at some point in time.
And I think the really interesting thing is like this is an official NASA announcement. Like they got like it takes a lot of evidence for them to like get other astrobiologists to say like
Aliens.
together and say like hey this thing was probably created by extraterrestrial life like that there's a very high bar
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay, I have a
um
question about this
yeah.
extraterrestrial life now, because now I feel like it's not as uncommon to have bacteria on like rocks. Like, what
Hmm.
if it was just like a
Like
meteorite?
contamination
Yeah, or what if,
like by
yeah,
us or from like somewhere else in the solar
yeah,
system.
somewhere else with a planet that has more living bits and it just crashed onto Mars and like the meteorite hit Mars. Now there's just a hunk and it's from another planet that has a lot more of this residue.
Yeah, so I will say that one of the things they looked at was they said that the rock does not seem to have chemical signatures of being exposed to high temperatures. And it seems to be like, other than these weird spots, match the pattern that they expect from kind of a Martian sedimentary rock. Of
Ah,
course, it's always possible that like bacteria arrived on a meteorite from somewhere else and then colonized Mars. But these bacteria, like this rock, seems like it's been on Mars for like
a long
basically
time.
it was formed on Mars. Um,
Got it. I mean, that's still very cool. It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
little anticlimactic that our extraterrestrial aliens are like microbes, but
are like microbes that we can't actually see. Yeah.
yeah.
I think so. I mean, I will say one cool thing about it is so that Perseverance has the ability to actually like take samples of the rock and package them for return to Earth. So like in a few years, another probe is going to show up and collect these rock samples and then take them back to Earth so we can
Heck
analyze
yeah.
them in. And that's actually when we might find like fossilized microbes, when we have the ability to use more sophisticated analytics tools on them. Um,
Okay,
I
heck
do
yeah.
think that, yeah, the other really interesting thing, and this seems to be the part that everyone found really convincing for why it's life, is that this kind of reaction normally can't occur at low temperatures, and they're also pretty convinced that this rock was not exposed to high temperatures.
Yeah.
And then so the question is, what caused these molecules to form? And it turns out living things have a lot of enzymes that essentially allows reactions to proceed at temperatures much lower than they would otherwise happen. So they're like okay, we think there's no reason, there's no way these molecules could have formed unless something used an enzyme to metabolize them.
Ooh, okay, that's kind of cool. Something
Yeah.
used, something did a catalyst reaction on Mars
Uh-huh.
at some point in time.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Okay,
Which is like
cool.
also pretty cool that we can like look at that and detect that.
Yeah, I feel like someone on Earth, before they sent all these probes, were thinking about this already, right? They're like, what could we
Mhm.
see? Like, what kinds of spectrometry do we need to do to, confirm or deny that was any extraterrestrial life? It was kind of cool that someone was like, okay, let's test for this. Like, let's test for these elements because they are residues of, metabolism and like a living being at some point in time.
Yeah. It's and actually interestingly, we started doing this like as soon as we started sending probes to Mars, like back in like the 70s and 80s. Actually, some of those we started with the assumption that there might be like stuff actively living on Mars. So we sent probes with things that were actually intended to kind of measure the metabolism of like living bacteria on there. And they found kind of ambiguously negative results, like technically negative, but people still to this day kind of argue about like whether it was really negative or whether there was some evidence of life in them.
I was gonna say I was recently. Oh, I guess it's not that recent anymore. We were actually at the Air and Space Museum in
Mhm.
like the West. Where was it? Like near Dulles.
Yeah, the
Oh,
Udvar Daisy Center.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they had like a whole section on the spacesuits where for the moon, like the early moon landings, and they were microbial tight, microbe tight. Like
Mhm.
they didn't allow microbes to cross
Like they were
a
designed like
barrier.
by suits. Yeah.
Yeah, they were designed like biohaz suits because they were worried that, these astronauts would go on the moon and get like moon disease from like some
Yeah.
bacteria there. And luckily there wasn't any and it was fine, but like they were thinking about this when they were planning the
Yeah.
missions and when they were designing the suits. They were all like microbe tight. Like there was ways to like sanitize and
Yeah.
like keep the outside from inside from touching.
Yeah, although it was really lucky that there weren't any moon diseases because one of the things that they didn't really anticipate was the astronauts tracked in tons of moon dust, which turns out is like very fine and sticks to anything, everything. So
Yeah.
like if there were moon bacteria, they would have all gotten exposed to them anyway.
Yeah. That being said, I heard the ISS is full of interesting bacteria that is like
Oh
space
yeah, yeah, yeah.
bacteria, and we can do a whole episode on the kinds of
Yep.
strains that they have
There's like
discovered.
tons of new species that have been discovered on the space station.
Yeah,
So,
because they live on like
um,
zero gravity, and it's like
yeah,
completely different
apparently,
vibe.
apparently the Mir station, which is like the first like long-term inhabited space station, actually smelled really bad because of all the like weird mold and stuff living in it. Anyway, yeah, let me just mention the other two. So, in descending order of probability of aliens,
Okay.
there's this comet that we mentioned last time. People have been talking about whether this comet is an alien spaceship. In part because like it's enormous. So I think that we got some better estimates of the size of the comet, and it's like 5 kilometers in diameter, which is a very large comet. The other thing is that so normally when comets are coming towards the sun, they develop a tail that goes away from the sun. And what's happening is like as the comet starts to melt, it gives off dust, and that dust is kind of pushed back away from the sun by the radiation coming off of the sun. This one seems to have a very bright tail, but it's going the other way, so it's going towards the sun. Um,
Interesting.
and yeah, and so people are saying like, so basically, like the kind of what people are talking about is like this is what you would expect kind of if you had a rocket that was approaching a solar system and then it was maneuvering to slow down. This is kind of like you had to travel at very high speed to get to the solar system. And then once you're there, you want to slow down so that you don't just kind of go past it or get shot out immediately. So
What?
that's kind of the And then there's all the other things that people have said about it's like, okay, it seems to be coming in kind of on the same like plane that the planets are on, but it's also like the Earth is going to be like behind the sun at the closest approach, so maybe it's like hiding from us. There's all that stuff. I was just going to say about the tail. Actually, so the Harvard UFO guy actually did come out with a paper explaining the tail, and it seems to not necessarily be a rocket. It seems like what happens is if the comet gives off flakes of ice of a certain size, those flake out mostly from the front part and they kind of get thrown in front of it before they evaporate. And that's what gives you a front facing tail.
That was what I was just about to say. I
Yeah.
was like, is the comet getting smaller? Because like if it's a 3 mile comet, like that's how big it was, right?
Yeah.
5 kilometers.
Right.
Yeah, so that's like
Uh-huh.
3 miles. So a 3 mile comet, like if it's losing, like 30 feet of rock,
Uh-huh.
like you're not gonna see it shrink dramatically, but maybe that amount of rock is enough in the front end, like it's going in that direction and it's just shattering into like smithereens. And do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Again,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
what they're
Yeah.
actually seeing, and that's why it's on the front side, because the nose is basically imploding slowly and like it's eroding away as it
Exactly.
travels in that direction.
And it seems like it's like something is so the difference between this and kind of normal comets is that with normal comets, what makes their tail is mostly kind of dust coming off the comet. So just like as the comet starts to warm up, dust can kind of just starts to kind of dust off of it and then gets blown by the solar wind, and that's what forms the tail. The argument here is that this is actually water ice and that behaves differently. It's coming off in larger particles, and those big particles are less affected by the solar radiation until they sublimate into water vapor. And so therefore these particles are kind of being thrown in front of it by as the comet kind of is melting and popping, and it takes because they're being thrown out in first and it takes them a while to sublimate. You get this kind of jet in the front of the comet.
Got it.
Mm.
Yeah, dude, I
Um,
believe that. I believe
yeah.
that more than aliens, to be
Then
honest.
the comet is driving theory.
Yeah, the
Uh,
comet is driving.
yeah. I guess we'll see. Like
Yeah.
this same guy also still kind of believes it's an alien spaceship, or like it could be an alien spaceship. So he's like, also when it goes behind the sun, it could like change course and come for Earth.
There's like optimists and there's like pessimists in the
Yeah.
world. Like we're dealing with the same data, and then there's like hope, and then there's some people that are glass half full and glass half
Yeah.
empty. Like this man is a half full kind of guy. So
Yeah,
everything is
but
aliens until
I
you
mean
prove it's not.
the implication of this thing is of that statement was that like actually the aliens might be trying to like sneak up on us to kill us though. Um like the statement was like maybe it's gonna like sneak up on us behind the sun and then it's gonna do this trajectory change where we can't see it and then we'll only have like a couple months before it gets to Earth and like murders us or whatever. Um is the theory, which to be clear, there is absolutely no evidence for. Like I would consider that a myth that the comet is going to like turn around and go murder us.
Ribeye B says planetary assassin.
Yeah, it is a very like it is a very like I'm thinking more like planetary like Tom and Jerry, like it's like a very Tom and Jerry-esque plot where it's just going like and then just like and then come smack into us. Um,
Oof.
our last and like least likely to be alien thing also comes from the same guy, but he did I think a better job at this. So also last week, the US government published what appears to be a video of a drone trying to shoot a UFO, and then the missile just kind of bounces off the UFO. And so people were obviously like very freaked out about this because like as one person described, they're like, okay, so the UFO just like ate a hellfire missile and was fine. They were like, what the heck is this? Actually, this guy did a pretty good job of so he also has a blog which I'll post. here because it's actually quite interesting. But he came up with a pretty good explanation of this, which is interestingly that it's not a UFO. It is in fact a Houthi drone.
A what drone?
Houthi drone. So this
A
is
Houthi drone.
the militant rebel force in Yemen that
Ah,
has been like periodically shooting at U.S. and Israeli assets in the Middle East. They seem to have some decently powerful weapons. They're supplied by Iran, and they've been shooting at various ships that are associated with Israel and the U.S.
I thought
Um,
you were gonna show me a UFO in China, which is what
Oh
I
yeah, the
found.
one that they maybe shot a missile at. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one actually I did not look into enough to talk about. But if you look at this video, so this is do they have the video here? Um, so it's a shot from another drone.
Oh, I want to see this drone.
Yeah. Um, this is a still. Let's see if we can. Oh yeah, we can pull it up.
I like that it's called Hellfire missile.
Yeah. That is like technically the name of that kind of missile.
I mean, some physicists or rocket scientists had to name it that
Yeah.
though.
I think it was like just like Lockheed named it.
Uh,
But okay, so all UFO videos look like exactly this crappy. But like what's going on here is that this kind of like bright splotch in the middle is the UFO, which this drone that is filming has like locked onto, so it's actually tracking it and keeping it in the middle of the screen. And we're gonna see the missile hit it from the other side, from like the top left of the screen. So we're tracking this thing as it moves over the ground, and the missile should be coming sometime here. There it
oh,
goes.
there
Yeah.
it is.
Okay, so yeah, so that splotch is the missile going into its target, and then
Oh
you
wait,
can see it.
it moved. It diffracted its.
Yeah, it definitely moved, and you can see it looks like some stuff has kind of broken off here, right? Or like
Yeah.
something has happened here. But also the missile keeps going that way. Like the missile didn't explode, and the object also keeps going the same
And
way
there's
as
like three pieces tailing it now, so it like
yeah.
broke into 4 pieces.
Hmm. Anyway, this is like a more zoomed out view of it.
Is this the
Uh,
ocean
anyway, this is
underneath?
like, what is that?
What is it? The ocean underneath?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, um,
It is moving very strangely.
yeah. It is. It is really zigzagging a lot, which like, um, I mean, so sometimes drones and cruise missiles do that to avoid being locked onto, because you don't want them to have a predictable flight path.
Uh,
But it's hard to say. Anyway, like clearly that is not what anyone expected to happen. Like the what you would normally expect to happen is that the missile would hit the thing and that it would no longer be flying. So that's why this is so weird. But what Avi Loeb thinks was happening is that this is a Yemeni drone that was flying over the ocean. We launched a missile at it. The important thing about these missiles is that these missiles are not designed to take out aircraft. They're designed to take out tanks. And so anti-aircraft missiles just kind of get near the aircraft and explode and generate a bunch of shrapnel, and it just punches a bunch of holes in the aircraft, and then it can't fly anymore. Anti-tank missiles have a shaped charge, and they're designed to actually impact on the like main body of the thing and actually just kind of like shoot a jet of flame through it. Now, so were this an anti-aircraft missile, it probably would have taken this drone out. However, because this is actually an anti-tank missile, it
got it.
seems like what happened was it struck this kind of glancing blow and it broke some stuff off, but the missile's warhead didn't detonate and the
It just
thing
kept
was still
going.
able to fly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like it like probably took off the landing gear or some of the tail or something on it
Yeah.
that wasn't critical for it to stay in the air because that's not really how that kind of missile is designed to be used, essentially. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the more plausible theory that he came up with is that it was just a poor attempt at taking down a drone.
Yep. No, I hear you. I think that's more likely
Yeah,
too. They like had a glance off of each other, and then
right.
like one went this
It's
way,
kind
and
of
they kept
weird that
going.
this is being presented as a UFO, like that they didn't, well, they weren't or didn't want to for some reason, like identify it as like this is a Yemeni drone. That's the only weird part. But
Yeah.
um,
Mm. Maybe it's still like that part's classified, or no one wants to claim that that's their drone. Um, I could see that. I mean, I understand why we have a space force now. Like,
yeah,
would this
uh,
go under Air Force, or would this be in the under the jurisdiction of the Space Force
I
once
guess that's
it's
like what they're
UFO?
arguing about.
Yeah.
They're like, what is this?
Yeah, I feel like if they can call it UFO, then like Space Force can come for it. But like if it's clearly just a regular drone on like
That it's Air Force.
altitudes that are not crazy high, then it needs to be called a
So actually, the Pentagon actually now has this office that investigates UFOs, which is called like the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And it's extremely weird. Like no one's entirely sure what they're doing, but like in theory, like they are the answer to this question of like, is this a spacecraft or an aircraft? Is they're just like, okay, it's weird, so Arrow gets it.
Yeah, I mean, it still always has been kind of a weird gray line where you say this is space and this is air, just the air.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
Mhm.
arbitrary. Like I mean, some of those jet planes we had going
Yeah.
commercially were clearly in the they were going speeds and heights that were we would call
Right.
space,
There
right?
isn't a clear boundary between like
No.
the top of the atmosphere versus space. And with UFOs, I think one of the reasons that they kind of one of the things they kind of is confusing about this is that a lot of the UFOs the military has observed seem to go in and out of the ocean. So you'll see like a thing that is traveling in the water and then takes off, or is traveling in the air and then just like dives down into the water. So they're like, is this a UFO or is it a boat or like what do we call it? And then they're just like, okay, it's an anomaly. We give it to the anomaly people.
Ah, wild. Anyway,
One thing
we
I
made it.
do, yeah,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
a nice, maybe a nice. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say we're almost out of time.
Yeah. Maybe a nice ending thing. I think this is somewhere where I really agree with Avi Loeb because actually, we actually both work on projects that are related to this, and it's also related to this comet. Is that like a lot of these questions I think really emphasize like the benefits of having systems that are just there, always looking for anomalies. So like that's how we discovered this comet. Both like Avi Loeb is working on systems for actually looking for unusually moving vehicles in the unusually moving aircraft that you can just kind of identify with specialized sensors scattered all over. And like I think there's a lot of benefit in that because like we often do find weird stuff and it's interesting to know figure out what it is. Like it's always an interesting question.
Nice. That's a cool place to
Mhm.
stop. Cool use of technology, and I don't know, it's kind of it's every time I look up to the sky, I'm like it's a little humbling about, our place in it all.
Definitely. Yeah.
Um anyway, thank you for joining us. We're Philosophising. We'll be back sometime next week, possibly with a different time. So wait
Mhm.
for those
Yeah. Might be Thursday for
notifications.
next week though.
Yeah.